Thank you for joining us in finding God in the world of video games. Today we're taking a look back at Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze. And I've professed my love of co-op gaming many times before, but there are some games that are enabled for cooperative play, and then there are other titles that are built for them. And while Donkey Kong Country can certainly be played by yourself, the satisfaction of tag teaming this adventure is where the real fun lies. Many of the most recent multiplayer titles split the screen to allow both players to progress independently of each other without frustration. Or sometimes they may utilize an invisible tether that keeps the party in proximity while permitting exploration, but not Donkey Kong. No. This game takes the wonderfully bold and decidedly old-fashioned approach of demanding intensive coordination between both players as they share the exact same screen space, the exact same extra lives pool, and oftentimes the same vine to swing onto to safety. While this can initially lead to a great deal of consternation, the communication and tandem teamwork required to pull off some of the more challenging levels can feel like a well-choreographed ballroom dance routine that leaves each participant both breathless and exhilarated. Good old Donkey Kong and his simian family can always be counted on for a real challenge. And while I credit myself with slightly above average platforming skills, I will confess I probably spent more than I would care to admit banana-based currency purchasing more balloons, which are extra lives who have not had the pleasure, because my wife and I have sent a whole lot of monkeys to their collective dooms, either falling down endless pits, jumping into random spikes, or maybe just simply failing to coordinate the end-of-level jump correctly. And sometimes that results in Donkey Kong being banished to the back of the game shelf for a few months. But since our fates are so directly intertwined, our ability to complete a level and move on requires a huge degree of teamwork. There are times that one character must defer to another's abilities, such as Donkey Kong. He's able to smash through an area with raw brute strength, where Dixie Kong can use her hair to float to a ledge. Other times, it's as simple as one character holding a switch down so the other can advance and then reciprocate. The bottom line is this is a very symbiotic relationship in which neither primate protagonist can succeed without the other's direct support. The concept of a tag team partner has its roots in scripture, but I'm not just referring to the marriage relationship or having Christian friends as a support structure, although those are certainly valid and well-established themes. No, I'm actually looking at something, or appropriately, someone who appears rapidly on the world scene during a critical moment in the history of the planet and just as quickly disappears after having completed this role, without so much as a last name to identify them. Today I am looking at the enigmatic Simon of Cyrene. You may know him as the man who carried God's cross. Now I'll start with dispensing with the formalities. I'm going to stick to the biblical recording of what occurred here without acknowledging any of the unconfirmed traditions that some others may have ascribed to our man Simon. Now there can be exceptional value in adding context through referent works that were written by historical figures of that day and time, but I've observed in my experience that the annals of history belong not to the truth but to the victor, far too often to quote anything other than the Bible as authoritative. So please, forgive my relentless adherence to only what is recorded in the Word as we probe this incredibly unique moment in time and human history. To do this justice, first, we're going to set the scene. A beaten, bloodied, condemned man who has been up all night long is dragging his element of execution with the remaining strength he possesses down the road. Conservative estimates place the weight of this at approximately 125 pounds, because it was typical for the vertical portion of the cross to remain affixed at the crucifixion site, with only the horizontal beam being carried by the prisoner. Now, if the entire cross was truly being carried here, that estimate balloons up to 300 pounds. But either way, this would be an exhausting task for someone in optimal shape, and positively torturous for Jesus in his currently incapacitated state. As we follow the passage, we find that Jesus, he's finally had enough. His human strength has ebbed, and he falls to the ground in exhaustion, stubbornly refusing to allow himself the luxury of calling on his deity to sustain him, even now, when no one would think less of him or even know if he had. And it is here that the unexpected happens, as God lays deliberately helpless at the feet of his own creation. Through movies, books, songs, and church traditions, there are many different versions of how Simon came to be in position of carrying the cross of Christ. Some suggesting maybe he volunteered to do it as a kindness, or others attributing his proximity to the situation to mean maybe he was a follower or a disciple. But let's get to the facts of Scripture as it lays out the drama from three distinct but complementary points of view that, when placed together, form a full portrait of what actually happened that day. Luke 23:26 records that the Roman soldiers laid hold of Simon and placed the cross on him. The words lay hold are actually one Greek word in the original text, which means to seize. It implies forcefulness, and it's the same word used when Paul and Silas are seized or arrested, or when Sosthenes is seized and beaten. The same word is used. Matthew 27:32 says that the Romans found Simon and compelled him to carry the cross. Now, the compelled word here in Greek is rarely used in the Bible. It's best translated to press into public service. It's the same word that was used in Mark 15:21, which captures Simon was coming out of the country and was simply passing by when he was conscripted into service. So adding all these together causes a very clear picture to emerge, namely that Simon of Cyrene was put into the position to carry the cross of Christ based on the decisions of others. And his interest or willingness to do so did not have any bearing on the fact that he was going to be forced to complete this task. How interesting that, with all of the myriad of followers Jesus had, as well as a number of friends and disciples, that it was someone that Jesus seems to have never even met in his mortal life. Someone who did not appear to even have a dog in this fight would ultimately be the one that would assist Jesus in drinking the cup he had been given. Neither James nor John, the fiery brothers who were ready, to call down fire from heaven and defend Jesus, not Peter, who had pledged to give his life just hours before, none of them were chosen to be the vessel of delivery here. In this dramatic scene that was planned from the beginning of time, the role of the one who was destined to literally bear this burden for the king seems to have fallen to someone who had no interest or intention to become famous for this. A co-op partner who was vital, necessary, but from all appearances seemed to be voluntold to complete the course. Most of us are familiar with passages of Scripture that encourage us to take up our own cross. It's an entirely different thing to realize that we will be called upon unexpectedly to carry someone else's cross, someone we may not even know, and at a time where it may be very unpopular to do so. Jesus was at his lowest moment in many ways here, and being seen with him right now was not an ideal photo op for someone if you were trying to keep a low profile. And yet this is what history placed directly into Simon's lap. His destiny was to help the very Son of God across the finish line. God doesn't typically use angels to help us carry our crosses. He uses people. Simon wasn't perfect. He wasn't even necessarily willing, but he was chosen. And if it was good enough for Jesus, it's good enough for me. I will not always get to choose my co-op partners in life. Sometimes I'll be the one doing the heavy lifting. And other times God will deliver the right person into my life, even if it is just for a short time, to help me carry my cross to the next stopping point. They may not be who I would have chosen. They may not even be someone I want helping me. But God, in His infinite wisdom, chooses who will help each of us to make it to our final destination. At various times in our lives, we will be called upon to inhabit the role of a co-op partner for someone, and at other times, a Simon will be plucked from the crowd around us to help shoulder the load. We don't always get to choose whose cross we'll be carrying, but rest assured that if God called you to carry it, that it is imperative that you do so, because one time, the entire fate of humanity rested on the shoulders of a man named Simon to deliver a cross, or on a woman named Mary to deliver a child, or on a fisherman named Peter to deliver a sermon. And it goes on as He uses each one of us to carry the cross just a little farther each day. And when the cross isn't yours to bear, but He asks you to do it anyways, remember that the cross that you help someone carry might be the one that leads millions to salvation. Just ask Simon. The cross he was asked to carry was the one that saved me, you, and hopefully him too.